us the understanding that we need for each and every item that's to be discussed. We ask that we ask that you use us to do the right thing, what is right. Convict us if we're not doing it right, Father. So I thank you right now. I ask for grace, I ask for mercy, and I ask for understanding. This is my prayer. Amen.
Amen. Let's stand and pledge allegiance to the flag. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated. I call the meeting to order. I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
I made a motion.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Consent agenda. I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
I make a motion that we approve the agenda as presented.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Public comments. The proclamation on Constitution Week. Is there anyone here that wants to receive this? Come forward. Come up here. You're going to be in front of the podium. Listening 3/2023 Constitution Week. Whereas September the 17th, 2023 marks the 236th anniversary of the drafting of the Constitution of the United States of America by the Constitutional Convention. And whereas it is fitting and proper to accord official recognition to this magnificent document and its memorable anniversary and to the patriotic celebration which will commemorate the occasion, and whereas Public Law 915 guarantees the issuing of a proclamation each year by the President of the United States of America designating September the 17th through 23rd as Constitution Week. Now therefore, Jerry M. Menden, by virtue of this authority vested in me as member of the town of Benson in the state of North Carolina, do hereby proclaim the week of September 17th through 23rd as Constitutional Week, and ask our citizens to reaffirm the ideals of the framers of the Constitution had in 1787 by vigilantly protecting the freedom guaranteed to us through the guardian of our liberties, remembering that lost rights may never be gained. Adopted this 12th of September 2023, Jerry M. Menden, Mayor, Angie Thornton, Clerk. Congratulations and for coming. If you want to say something, you can.
The Daughters of the American Revolution hope that you all recognize Constitution Week. Teach your children, your grandchildren. We've hit schools, the libraries, so please, if you can, remember the Constitution and our founders for it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming. Individuals wishing to address the board are asked to provide their name and address for the record. Come forward. Individuals wishing to address the board, come forward. No one comes to the board, comes forward. We close the public comments. Now move down to the department reports. Is there any questions that any of the commissioners have about the departmental reports? Nothing being said, we go down to public hearing on special use permit 2023-04. Come forward, Aaron.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. To see you all this evening. Tonight we have a hearing for a special use permit for a
You
residential.
got to be sworn first.
Okay.
And you want me to go into a little bit of background, maybe? I don't know if anybody's
Yeah,
testified, but I know the applicant will, so a little background about the quasi-judicial.
Definitely.
and everything.
Yes.
Okay, for the board's review and everybody else in the room that is gonna participate in this part of the meeting, this is a quasi-judicial hearing. Quasi-judicial hearings are a little bit like court. The judges are, I guess, paneled as the board. Strict rules of evidence don't apply, but parties will present their case, and opponent parties can object, so it will kind of look a lot like a court proceeding, which is a little bit different than you expect on a town board meeting. The participation is limited to parties with standing. The applicant obviously has standing. Property owners, we'll get to standing more a little bit later, which is something we might have to get into with parties in opposition, those that can present evidence. The decision tonight must be based on competent, relevant, and substantial evidence in the record, which is to say that the board only can consider what is presented to them tonight and make their decision based on that information that comes in tonight at this hearing. All the parties must be sworn, unless you're represented by counsel. Your legal counsel does not need to be sworn. At this point, I think it's appropriate to call any kind of ex parte communications, fixed opinions, bias, financial interest, close relationships with any parties. Does the board have any conflicts or ex parte communications that have happened outside of this meeting that they need to disclose before we get into the substantive part of the hearing? If there are none, then I want to get in briefly to standing. I'll go ahead and ask, are there any parties other than the applicant who would contend to have standing and wish to present evidence regarding this case? Sorry, any party out here? Yes, sir.
Yes, my name is Eric Stewart, and I'm adjacent to the property in question.
So you live next door to, what, come on up. Why don't you, we go ahead and swear him in before we get into this.
Raise my right.
Do you swear that you tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Okay, and then just state your name and address for the record.
Eric Stewart, 206 North Augusta Avenue.
Well, I'm not going to put you on the spot now about your particular matters and testimony or whatever you want to bring up substantive. What we're going into right now is just the standing that you have. You said you live next door to the property. You own property next door to it. Is that right?
Technically, the property is in my daughter's name, but yes, it's mine, my house.
Okay, it's your house, but it's in your daughter's name. That's where you live.
Yes.
What you have to demonstrate, and I represent the town, so I can't, I'm not working for or against you in this. That you would suffer a particular special damages from the outcome of what the board decides tonight as to this matter, as to this case. So I would suggest you go into that just briefly, because you own or you have an interest in property, it sounds like, adjacent to it.
Do I present my case now?
No, don't present your full case, but what kind of special damages you would suffer?
Well,
depending on the
I
outcome.
plan on getting into that when I make my
Is
presentation.
it anyone here, I'm assuming representing the party, Mr. Woodruff or somebody, do you have any objection to his standing? No, no need for that. So if they don't have an objection, then you have standing. That makes you a little bit different than anybody else who might ask to be heard by the board tonight. You're actually a party, right? So you can present your own evidence. You can testify yourself if you'd like, of course, and you can also cross-examine witnesses or object to evidence.
Okay.
Is
Thank
there
you.
yes, sir. Is there any other party that would contend to have standing in this matter? Okay, that being done, and there's no ex parte communications, financial interest, close relationships need to be disclosed. Aaron, sorry to steal your show. Aaron needs to be sworn in. Any party that comes up will have to be sworn in.
I do. Aaron Joseph, 303 East Church Street. I will present my staff report, but I will ask that the board accept the applicant's application packet as well as my staff report and enter that into the record. And we can have a motion to have that entered into the record, if you will.
I'll make a motion to have it entered in the record.
All in favor say aye. Opposed, no.
So this evening, this special use permit request is for a residential development for a triplex, a 3-unit development in the corporate limits located on West Hill Street in Augusta. Just a few site details. The property is owned by JDADV and Title is Dutch Villas. The total acreage of the site is 2.04 acres. Stated it's located within our corporate limits, right at West Hill Street and North Augusta Avenue. This site is currently unimproved and vacant lot. Utilities would be provided by the town of Benson. And again, the applicant has requested to develop a multifamily dwelling unit, a triplex in one single building. The surrounding area, you can see on the screen here that's highlighted in red, that's the site. You have NC 50 North to the west boundary. You have North Lincoln Street to the east of the site is approximately 0.4 acres from NC 50. And it is within our corporate limits. Predominant uses in the area are single-family residential. The nearest subdivision you have is Colonnade. And then you do have single-family homes throughout on Hill Street, North Augusta, and Martin Street. So the zoning for this site is currently R6. It was rezoned back in 2021 from R11 to R6. The surrounding uses are single-family residential, and as you can see on the zoning map, that the surrounding zoning districts include residential R6. The request is consistent with our future land use map and our comprehensive land use plan for residential development in that area. On your screen, you have the site plan that is being considered for this site. Although the total acreage today for the site is 2.04 acres, the total area of disturbance will be 0.83 acres. Planning has reviewed the site plan, Benson Fire, Public Works, as well as and that's all just because it's not on an NCDOT right-of-way. So Public Works reviewed it for the streets. Fire reviewed it for hydrant connections, and planning to review it for comply with our current development code. And there were no significant modifications to the site plan as it was presented. And we agreed that it was sufficient as presented. They are proposing, as stated, 3 units in a triplex. They've provided parking spaces. They're utilizing the standard setbacks for a single-family development. Setbacks are set by the special use permitting process. So you see on their site plan that they have gone back a little further than what the requirements are for a single-family home as far as the front setback, and then even on the side they are showing a 20-foot setback from the side property lines. The total square footage of the building is roughly 4,120 square feet. They have less than 17,000 square feet of impervious surface and less than 1 acre of land disturbance, so they are not required to have stormwater or erosion control. Their impervious surface maximum is at 30% of the site. The findings of fact this evening, there are 4 that you want to look at and weigh against the evidence that is presented this evening. The application will not materially endanger the public health or safety if located where proposed and developed according to the plans as submitted and approved, that the application meets all required specifications and conforms to the standards and practices of sound land use planning and the town code of ordinances and other applicable regulations, that the application will not substantially injure the value of adjoining or abutting property, and will not be detrimental to the use or development of adjacent properties or other neighborhood uses, and that the application will not adversely affect the adopted plans and policies of the town or violate the character of existing standards. And so upon review, staff does recommend approval of this request.
Okay. We'll now go to the applicant's testimony. During this time, no questions should be asked by the town commissioners at that time. So we'll ask the representative to come forward.
Good evening, Board. Kirk Lane, True Line Surveying, 205 West Main Street in Clayton, here representing the applicant for the Hill Street triplex. As Aaron stated before, we have presented a site plan that has been approved by the town, has been approved by the planning board, or recommended for approval by the planning board, and we have also presented a subdivision map for the lot that this residential building will be built on, and it has been through the review process by the town of Benson as well. So as a matter of record, I'm going to ask the town attorney, do you want to read in the findings of fact, or they, as they are?
I think the planning director read in the findings of fact to the record.
Okay, so.
Justified that to him.
Okay.
If you want to ask her, I mean, you're a witness, right, a representative, but you're a
Correct.
witness on their behalf. If they have counsel, he can ask questions of the planning director as well, if there's specific questions about the findings of fact, I guess. If
Okay. I didn't know if you wanted to read the response to the finding of fact into the record.
you can. You're the sworn witness.
I didn't know what your procedure was. So that is the proposal, is for a triplex unit built in this R6 zoning. R6 zoning does allow it. However, it allows it through a special use process as set forth by the Unified Development Ordinance, or the development guidelines in the town of Benson. So we are here. We had a neighborhood meeting, planning board, and now here. It's a 3-step process for special use. So I'll reserve for further comment or questions by the board.
No.
Yeah,
Not at this time.
The board
Right.
can go into asking questions
Right.
at a later point in the hearing.
Okay.
Anyone else wants to come and speak in favor of the,
Before we get to that, Mr. Stewart, as a party now, you can cross-examine him if you'd like to ask him any questions. This is not the time where you need to necessarily put on your case, but you can ask that witness questions if you'd like.
Swearper?
Okay, Mary Beth Road, 7995 Highway 96 South Benson. As Kirk said, we've gone through all the approval process. We're at the last step here. Just wanted to clarify, I think you should have the actual plans, a copy of the plans of what we're proposing to build. Hopefully you will recognize that this is going to improve the neighborhood, not disapprove. It will be brick veneer on the outside, sod. Obviously the parking will be paved, and there may be some more things that I need to say down the
Let me
road.
just say, I don't know if I already say, why don't you first qualify your involvement and
Okay.
your, I'm not gonna use that word, but I'll say your considered opinion and where that comes from, the basis for that.
Okay, so I was the true applicant for the party, the owners, handled all the paperwork, and for my connection to them, I am a real estate agent, have served them in that manner, and my husband will be building the project. So as far as tell me what else you want me to tell you.
Yeah, just some background on the foundation of why you're giving these opinions.
Okay.
That's
Obviously, the real estate agent, I see values, and after doing some research, and looking at the area, there are single-family homes in that area, but one street over, there have been 3 duplex, homes built. They were built in 2017, 2018. So we do have some, multiple family units there, in the area. So I don't think that the triplex would negatively affect the area. Now, I do have other data, but we'll hold off on that if need be.
Well, that's up to you, but now's the time to present what you'd like to.
It's on the value, and how value has increased over the years. Do you want me to go ahead and do that now?
I would say if now's your time to testify.
Okay, sounds good.
On behalf of the applicant, or the property
Okay.
owner and applicant, then I would go ahead and put that in.
Okay, and I took this comparison of going back to when the duplexes were built. They were built 2016, 2017, and when they were built, the value of those were around $113,000. In 2019 to today's value, it increased to $141,500. So that's an increase of close to $29,000. So looking at that data, I do not see where any kind of any kind of additional other than a single-family home has hurt the value in that area. So that was just some history, some values that I took a look at. So I think that's it for now. Yeah, I think that's good. Any questions of the board?
They'll ask questions.
No question.
later.
Okay, sounds good.
Mr. Evans, if you, or Stewart, I'm sorry, if you want to cross-examine Ms. Rhodes, you have the opportunity, you can do that now.
Hey, Mary Beth, the property that you.
Hold on, man, 1 minute. Let's keep some decorum here. Let's let Ms. Rhodes come back up, and then if you want to just maybe sit up there next to Aaron, so you can ask her questions. Or,
Just let me know what happens.
Come up here,
yeah,
please. If you'll come up here.
Well, I just
We have a commissioner that is trying to watch it on YouTube as well, so if you'll speak into the microphone, so everybody can.
Mary Beth,
Yes.
the duplexes that you were referring to were originally sold as single-family units. They were not rental units, is that correct?
Yes,
Okay.
that is
The
correct.
proposed triplex
Mm-hmm.
will be rental property.
It sure will.
Okay,
Mhm.
that was my
Yeah,
question.
it will.
Is that good?
any questions you want to ask? Now's the time.
That's it.
Anything further you want to add? Or anybody, any questions
Well,
further?
since he brought up the rental thing,
He sure
did some more preliminary checking, and within the block, the block, 2 blocks around where we're proposing to do this, there are 10 rental single-family homes that are truly rentals. And 2 are probably, I could not confirm that there was an extra 2, but 10 of them are property family, and I do have those addresses if we need to put those into record at some point. I'm just trying to prove that the rental, even though a property is rental, it's not hurting the value. Is that good?
That should, yeah, that's
Okay.
fine. Nothing further, Mr. Stewart? I told y'all it'd be like court.
Anyone else wants to come and speak in favor of the applicant?
You ain't got support you anymore.
You may want to rethink that. Mr. Chair and members of the board, my name is Gordon Woodruff, and I'm an attorney in Smithfield. Obviously, I'm not a citizen of the town of Benson, and what I bring to you is maybe not of the level of expertise of some of the things you've already heard, but I am here to make a couple of points that I think are important for the board's consideration as you are performing this judicial function or quasi-judicial function where you are acting as a court, really, in judgment of a motion that's being made in front of your honors to decide. And in that sense, I guess I'm here like I would be in court advocating for a client that was in front of a superior court judge or a district court judge or something of that nature. And the points that I would like to make are few, and I'll be brief. The first is that I've been very impressed with your planning director. I think she's done a very thorough job. I think that she has looked at this from all angles. And there's one thing that she said tonight in her earlier remarks that I would like to repeat, and that is that this is consistent with the vision that you have created for the town of Benson going forward. In other words, this project is consistent with your future plans and uses that you would like to see. The second thing I would like to mention to you is something that she said and emphasized her remarks in this. She said that these were not the minimum setbacks, that these setbacks were greater than the minimum setbacks, and of course, you know, the result of that is that there's less, there's more green space, you might say, left that is not going to be part of the project, but it's going to be, a project's going to have to be farther away from the street and so, side owners and so forth than what the normal requirements would be. And to me, that is an example, and there are others, but I won't take all your time, but that is an example to me of how this project is trying to be a little bit better maybe, or a cut above what the absolute bare bones requirements might be of the law. So we ask that, or would appreciate your taking that in consideration in terms of your viewing of how this may impact your town. And I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Still not time for to ask questions to the commissioners.
At a later point.
Okay. I thank you for your time.
Anyone else come forward in favor of the applicant? Anyone else come forward? Okay. We'll now go to the testimony for the opposition. Anyone in favor or that is opposed, come forward. And still no question be asked of the commissioners.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Eric Stewart. I live at 206 North Augusta. And before I get into my main points tonight, there's something I want the board to be aware of. Some of the land that is under consideration tonight was sold to the Abdallers by Carolyn Lambert, who chairs the planning board for Benson. Last week's planning meeting, no one on the board recused themselves. I'm hoping the board can see how this can look like another situation of the good old boy network working its magic. Point one, I submit the approval of this permit would endanger public health and safety. So when you take a small R6 lot and cover it with an apartment that's a little over 4,000 square feet, not including driveways, sidewalks, and perhaps patios. I believe in this case about 30%, Aaron-ish, of the lot, the water flowing onto adjacent properties will increase the possibility of erosion and flooding. And let me remind the board that this property is uphill from adjacent property owners. Also, the road in front of this parcel is only 19.5 feet wide. There are a lot of people that use this area for walking their dogs, jogging, daily walks. Kids ride their bicycles, skateboard. The increased traffic and congestion will endanger public safety. Point 2, this property does not meet sound land use planning. This property was recently rezoned from R11 residential to R6 residential, and now they're seeking a special use permit for rental apartments. On these smaller lots, as you can see on the map, can you go back to the map, the bigger map? Yeah, okay. As you can see on this map, there's more property to be developed. And it's no great leap to know that once this special permit is granted, that it opens the door for more further development of rental properties. Point 3, the issuing of this permit will substantially injure the value of adjacent properties. Single homes in quiet residential neighborhoods are the gold standard around here. So by adding rental apartments to the neighborhood, there will be fewer people willing to purchase, therefore decreasing demand, therefore decreasing value. Compare two similar neighborhoods, one single-family homes and one with rental apartments. Which one would be more desirable? Which one would you choose? Point 4, the approval of this permit would violate the character of existing standards and forever change the character of our neighborhood for the worse. A few more things I'd like to mention as well. I want to make it clear that we're not trying to stop Mr. Abdallah from the use of his property. He's proven that himself. As we speak, he's building a single-family home on the adjacent lot that fits in quite nicely with our neighborhood. But when all is said and done, the outcome of tonight's decision will have no discernible effect on Mr. Abdallah. His lifestyle, his life will not change either way. But for some of us here tonight, your decision will affect us for the rest of our lives. And one more thing I want to bring to the board's attention is the burden of proof. The burden of proof for special use permits and subdivisions, site plans, and approvals. The applicant has the burden of producing significant, substantial content and material evidence for the hearing body to conclude that the standards of the applicant's applicable ordinances have been met. I thank the board for their time tonight, and if there's anything, I'm here.
They may ask questions later. Do you, well, first, because you provided testimony, is there any kind of cross or other questions from the applicant's perspective? Do you want to call any other witnesses?
No. Well, I would like to say that we have a few people here tonight that live in the neighborhood and are as opposed to this as I am. Would y'all raise your hand, please? Okay, so it's not just me. It's quite a few people in the neighborhood. That's all I have.
I would like to speak now that I've heard some points that were mentioned.
Do you, well, we went into standing with Mr. Stewart. You've got standing. You want
She
to
lives
call-
in the
you wanna-
adjacent property.
you
She
wanna
lives in
call-
Mr. Lambert's old house.
You want to call her, or do you want to?
Yes, please.
Or do you just want to call? You can come up and testify in your own regard.
It doesn't matter either way. I'm actually pretty new to this, and I bought Jerry Lambert's property.
Why don't we swear you in, and let's go from there.
You
My name is Amber Elise Cruz, and I live at 303 North Lincoln Street.
Which, is that adjacent to the proposed?
It is that larger corner lot in purple. If any of you are new, Mr. Jerry Amber, I bought his house.
Is there any objection to her standing for what it's worth? I think, do you just intend to testify in your own regard, and
Just some few things I'd like to say.
any objection to the standing there, 'cause she lives nearby?
I live right next to the the home that was recently done, that was the brick home. So there's that small newer home that's not finished yet between my home and the property in question. Okay. So I bought 303 North Lincoln Street in October of last year. I do not remember the exact date, I apologize, but it was in October. I actually spoke to Carolyn Lambert when she came to welcome us to the neighborhood. She seemed very nice, very generous, gave me a few gift certificates for different restaurants, welcomed us to the neighborhood. She was very cordial. I really appreciated the hospitality. Me and my husband had actually asked her about that lot behind us, the vacant lot, and we were kind of interested in maybe purchasing it so that we could have a larger piece of land. And she said that Mr. Abdallah, I'm sorry if I pronounced your name wrong, Mr. Abdallah, on that, but she wasn't really sure what he was going to do with that, and she didn't really know him. And then I'm finding out about all this, and I find that quite interesting. That she stated that she did not know anything about that property that was going on behind her home, and now this is happening less than a year later. Also, my question also too, the duplexes that they mentioned that were built, they were sold. And me and my husband own an electrical contracting company, and we have thousands upon thousands of dollars stored behind our home in electrical supplies. And sometimes we do have kids come up and they play, and we just very nicely say, you know, hey, don't touch anything in there. You know, they're things of value. We have tools. We have all kinds of stuff sitting out there. So when they built the smaller brick home that is between us and the property in question, we put up a fence so if the owners did have children or something, maybe they wouldn't cross over, and that we didn't want a child to get injured or something because they were over there touching something they weren't supposed to, because we all know how children are. So we put that up to kind of have a little barrier. And the thing about rental property, if it's for sale, they take care of their home, and they usually are more responsible. With rental property, you don't really know who they're bringing in. And that is my only concern, because it only takes one wrong person to say, oh, look, they've got something over there. And then they come and start getting into our stuff. Been there, done that. So other than all of this, I love living in Benson. I have enjoyed my year here. Everybody's nice. I love being able to walk into town. My husband loves being able to drive the golf cart to the bar. I mean, we love it here. But we will also want to make sure that we're not putting our property in jeopardy by rentals. Because whether you want to or not, a person can seem one way and you rent to them and then they bring in other people. That is the same problem we had before we moved to Benson, and that's part of the reason why we moved. So those are just some concerns that I want to express. But I just find it really interesting that she stated that she had no idea what was going on with that directly to me and my husband, and then all this is happening. That's why I didn't want to say anything until I heard everything, because I'm new here. to Benson. So I just didn't want to come up and say, oh, I know this or I know that, without having any information to go upon. And that's all I wanted to
Can
say.
you state your name again?
Amber Elise Cruz, Elise Cruz, C-R-U-Z. Thank you.
Any questions, any cross from the applicant side? You have any objection to it? No, I mean, you're the applicant, so, yeah, I don't think there's
I
a
don't
problem.
really have any objection. The only thing I would like to state is Carolyn Lambert, the property was bought, I was the buyer's agent during that process, which happened a few years back. She had no idea what they were proposing
Now,
to
and
do with this property.
That's testimony. If you want to ask her questions, I would,
Okay.
but then if there's some kind of, if the board wants to get into that,
Okay,
I mean, that
that's
is
fine.
germane, I understand the reason for it, but now's the time to ask her questions.
I don't really have questions.
Okay,
There's nothing else, that's
Thank
it.
you.
anyone else wants to come and give opposition testimony? The applicant now has a rebuttal, and they can ask questions of, the commissioners can ask questions of them.
So that now would be the time, if you wanted, this would be new testimony in response to what they brought up.
I do want to say, actually, as I was stating before, I was the buyer's agent for the Abdallah brothers when they purchased the property. The reasoning for them purchasing this property at the time, it was up for sale. They do have adjoining property, so it was very, enticing for them to want to purchase it. Carolyn had no idea. Matter of fact, I didn't really know Carolyn at the time. And she had no idea what their idea for the property was. They didn't know what their idea was for the property. They purchased the property just because it adjoined theirs. And, I think that's it.
You want to ask her something?
Yeah, so you read minds, you know what's in Carolyn's mind? You speaking for Carolyn.
I'm saying Carolyn did not know what
How
we
do you
were,
know what Carolyn knew?
she wouldn't have known what they were gonna do with the property. They didn't know what they were gonna do with the property when they purchased it.
But what I'm saying is you're speaking for Carolyn.
No,
You know
I'm
Carolyn-
speaking fact.
Okay. Well,
Well, you can
understand
object
that,
to it. You can object to that if
I
she's
object.
saying to something that somebody else,
It's
but that, everybody after that Johnny Depp trial knows what that is, so I understand. And that's your objection,
You're the lawyer.
and that's your objection to it. It's, again, it's a lot like court, but they're not gonna sustain or overrule, they're gonna take it all into account, right? So that's your objection to it.
I do have one more question for her. You do this for a living, is that correct? I mean, so if I were to say this is how you put food on the table, would that be out of context? I mean, you basically do this for a living.
I do.
Okay, it's your
Right.
vacation, okay. That's my question.
Nothing else?
Any other rebuttals from opposition, from the applicant?
Any other witnesses on behalf of the applicant or the owners?
All right, the rebuttal of the opposition.
Any other witnesses y'all would want to call to, and evidence any other witnesses y'all would want to call on, any evidence you want to present in rebuttal to anything they just submitted?
I don't think so.
The commissioners now can ask questions of either the opposition or the applicant.
I remember when we approved this, change the zoning from 11 to 6, whatever it was we did. So how many other parcels are there in this area? They said something about they could develop more. How much?
Who do you want to ask the question of?
Yeah.
I think Aaron could answer that better than I
Or
can.
you can
Yeah,
ask
yeah, yeah.
anybody that testified or anybody else.
Yeah, let's ask here.
So the question is how many more units? So this special use permit is limited to what's presented tonight to those 3 units. If they would like to modify and add more units, they would need to come back for a special use permit. So they can't be approved for one building triplex this evening and then build 4 more without further modification to the special use permit.
So does building this have any extra bearing on anything in the future, or not really?
I would say it could, because once you have established that use and it's built and it's existing, you've now have that use there, and that could speak to that type of residential development in that area, and how it may or may not, if in the future it came back, that it was appropriate or injurious or anything to those findings of fact. Someone could present evidence in favor or in opposition to it that speaks to the establishment of that approved development and how it has interacted with the surrounding area. So yes, they certainly could use that as a basis for evidence presented in a future hearing.
Just so I can get my bearings, and maybe I missed it, how many more acres are there that have that possibility?
Well, currently in our development code, anything that's other than a single family detached in the R6 or the R11 zoning district can have multifamily, a duplex, a apartment, triplex, townhomes. They can, as long as they are approved through a special use permit. So they're not approved by right at this time in our development code.
Any other questions of the commissioners?
Aaron, maybe you can tell me, Amber's lot is Jerry Lambert's house with the fence around it, right? The biggest lot out there that backs up to this property.
Right, I believe it's that corner lot there that she's speaking of. That was his property.
Facing Lincoln Street, and she's got front and back access to, that's the house we're talking about, right? Or that's the house she was talking about?
Correct.
Okay, now, her lot joins this big, the whole field or the whole lot back over here, is the whole lot owned by the same people?
The site that's in question?
I'm talking about everything on the outside of the red that's in green.
They're owned by different property owners. So, and on this slide here, in this image, what's highlighted in red is the current parcel. But there's a different property owner, that surrounds it. I believe they still own the lot that's between the current site that we're looking at and Mrs. Cruz's lot. I believe that is still currently owned by the current property owner. And then they have a single-family home that's under construction. I don't have the information right in front of me that thank you, Kim. So this property owner that surrounds, that is titled as Dutch Villas.
All this,
So,
this, and this is owned by the same person.
Okay, now,
help?
move out to the left of the red area. I mean, you had your hand on it. Yeah, that right there is owned by any of the property owners that, yeah.
this is, let me see right here where you're referring to land right here.
Yeah, uh-huh.
That's owned by the Abdallah Building Partnership. So they're
Okay.
all in certain entities, but I believe that is the
Okay.
same family.
Yeah, so they own that's adjoining what we're talking about, putting a complex in, right? Putting they own part of this and they own the rest of that.
Right, right.
Okay.
So, well, it's owned in different entities. So this one is owned by JDAV, Titan is Dutch Village. This one is Abdallah Building Partnership, and then the other one is just the Titan is Dutch Villas LLC. So they're owned by different entities. However, we know that the Abdallahs
On the
family.
different entities. Okay, that's what I was asking. Now, this is going to be accessed from Augusta Avenue.
In West Hill Street, Augusta and West Hill Street.
Uh-huh. So there's no way any of this property can adjoin Lincoln Street as far as coming into it from the back, right?
From what, I don't believe so, because these lots that are on this northeastern boundary are existing lots that are built out with homes. So there wouldn't be a planned access.
Every lot that we're looking at in green that is on Lincoln Street, there is a house that is built on it right now.
Correct.
Okay.
Any other questions of the commissioners?
Before you, don't want to cut the commissioner short, of course, but if at some point that Erin's come back up here to testify, the parties have an opportunity to cross-examine her on anything she's gone into. So if you have further questions, just go ahead and ask those, but just be aware of that the parties will be able to ask her on anything she's gone into here on this testimony that based on questions from the board.
Any other questions of the board?
I just, in the report that I was reading over, there was a Mr. Harvell that questioned something being said about a larger development with high-rise apartment buildings. Don't know where he got it from, but he was informed that that was not the case. Is he a property owner that addressed the board on this?
No, he was an adjacent property owner that attended the neighborhood meeting that the applicant held with adjacent property owners to give them information about what they were proposing. So that's one of the questions that was proposed during that neighborhood meeting and captured in the minutes that you have there. And so he was asking that question, and the applicant responded to his question. But that he was in attendance because he is an adjacent property owner within the radius of people and property owners that need to be notified. So he attended the neighborhood
So the only thing
meeting.
that's ever been discussed on this is a triplex,
Yes,
one triplex.
yes.
And just like Max said, you put one triplex out there, if one of the other owners of the other property wants to come 2 years from now and put another one out there, they would have to go through the same proceedings as this?
Based on our current UDO standard, they would.
What would they have to do to change the zoning? Or what's the zoning that's beside this property that they're not talking about developing? What is it zoned, and is it zoned the very same? Yeah, to your left.
Yes. So everything in green is R6, and everything in purple is R11. So it has the same zoning, residential, And so currently, anything other than a single-family detached home would require a special use permit in any, in a R6 district.
I'm just wondering about the way to get into this is off Augusta. And if they come back 2 years from now or a year from now and say, we're going to develop the left side, are they still coming off Augusta, or are they going to come off Hill Street and come back through?
Well, you see that on their site plan here, their driveway entrance is really off of West Hill Street. You can see there at the bottom of the screen that they have their parking area, and then the driveway is really more positioned off of West Hill Street and not Augusta.
Okay, well, I'm wanting to know how are we going to get to the other property if it's developed?
Well, it would go through review, and so their engineer, they would have to figure out the best way to accommodate any future development if they need to put in a street or extend the right-of-way. That's a site-specific detail that I don't want to, guess on right now without having the proper people to design that site plan. But
Okay. Thank you.
Ike, do you have anything else? Getting ready to call the commissioners into deliberation.
Before we get to that, the parties have an opportunity to cross-examine Erin on the substance of her testimony, since the board's called her back up here to provide all this information. So would the applicant want to, I know you do, would the applicant want to ask her any questions, cross-examine anything she's gone into here before the board as they called her back up?
The only question I have, Aaron, the rezoning, I think Mr. Stewart stated that it was rezoned recently in the past. I'm assuming the town rezoned it. We did not have it rezoned.
correct. It was rezoned in 2021 from R11, and it wasn't just that site. It was multiple properties that were rezoned from R11 to R6.
Good, I just wanted to make sure that I was correct. Is that part of the strategic growth plan?
Well, our comprehensive land use plan and our future land use map does identify it as higher density residential.
Okay.
Any other questions? Your turn.
Hey, Aaron, I do have a question for you. She was talking about when this land was rezoned from R11 residential to R6 residential. Who had that rezoned?
Carolyn Lambert at the time,
Okay.
petition.
Help me clarify this in my mind. My understanding, and tell me if I'm wrong, is if this special use permit is granted, it does increase the possibility, or makes it easier to get another special use. I mean, even though it has to go through the process, but the applicant could say, you've already approved it once, why not approve it again? I mean, is that my understanding? It does make it easier?
I would say that it does set a precedence for that type of development. If it goes through another special use permitting process, that could potentially, yes, be used as and submitted as evidence that we do have a either in opposition or for it, to say there's evidence that this there's multifamily development here. It has done well in the neighborhood based off of this evidence, or it has not done so well based off of this evidence. So, but certainly you can use the existing, or if it's a proven it is existing, if they decided to modify or add more as evidence to support in favor or opposition for it because of the quasi-judicial nature.
Okay, thank you for clearing that up.
Sure.
Anything more from the applicant? Any other questions? Follow up on that?
I call the commissioners into deliberation.
Are there no other parties that the board wants to hear from? Because once we get into this point, then you're not gonna I mean, it's your hearing, so we can reopen that. We're not, that hard and fast to the rule, but.
I've got a
She's
question.
got her hand up back there.
A question for Mary Beth.
To go back to the satellite image and just explain that a little bit further, because she was asking about the Lincoln Street.
You're asking Aaron this.
I wanted you to address your.
Well, this is the time to cross-examine her based on the testimony she went into just a minute ago with the board. So you can ask her questions about any of that. It's not time for new testimony, unless the board wants to call somebody up.
Is this just regular rental or is this government housing?
Are you asking me?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Well, in my role, we don't get into rental versus owner occupied. That's a matter that we don't address if it's rental versus. We look at the land use and it being residential, multifamily, single family, but discussions on owner occupied versus tenant occupied is not something that we get involved in. So that would be more of a question for the applicant.
Got a question for Mary Beth. Give me a ballpark on what rental would have to be. How much?
What would we be getting for this?
Yes,
Approximately $1,800 per unit, per month.
Well, at $1,800 a month, it cannot be government subsidized, can it?
That's not what they're proposing at this time.
I understand that. But can they come back and change that? See, I don't know, I'm just asking.
Yeah, they're property owner. They can rent it for whatever they want to rent it for, But standards like the single family that is being built.
Yeah,
That will range from $1,800 to $2,000 a month. Any more questions?
Now, I'd like to ask Mr. Stewart a question. If this were property that was being sold instead of rented, would you have a,
Oh, I'm sorry.
Just so everybody can hear you.
if this were rental, property that was being sold instead of rental property, would you have a problem with that?
Yes, because it completely changes the character of our neighborhood. When you put in rental properties in a single-family home neighborhood, it totally changes.
but what she's saying is, forget the rental, we're building something and we're selling it as a home. Does that make a difference with you if they are putting in something that is being sold to a homeowner instead of rented?
Okay. As we speak right now, Mr. Abdallah is building a single-family home directly adjacent to the lot that's being discussed. And this home will be rented. It's a rental home, but it's a single-family home. And I have no problem with that house he's building now. It fits into our neighborhood quite nicely. But these rental apartments that he's building right beside the home that he's proven he can build does not fit into, whether he rents it or sells it, proves they don't fit into our neighborhood. I think the fact that it's being rented does add a little extra spice to it, but the fact is that it's the type of housing it is, not,
So you have more of a problem with the structure
Yes,
rather than.
yes. If he were to build He can build a single-family home in that same lot because he's doing it now. I don't have a problem with that if that's what he wants to do. That would be great. I mean, I'm pro-growth for Benson. Don't misunderstand me. I want Benson to grow. I just want it to be responsible growth. And I want the growth to fit into the community as it is now. I mean, because we have a wonderful little town. And she spoke about that a while ago. And some of us that have lived here in Benson most of our lives want to keep that part of the character of our town that makes it so great. And I feel like allowing these apartments detracts from that. And that's why I'm so opposed to it.
Thank you.
Anything else from anyone?
How
Where
close
does
is,
your daughter live?
She's there. No, the house is mine.
I know that, but where's the house?
Oh, it's on the corner of Hill and Augusta.
Okay.
I'm on the very corner lot right there.
I got
So
it.
the property that is being talked about here is directly on the side of my house,
Uh-huh.
across the street.
Okay,
So their driveway and my driveway will be bumping into each other.
okay.
you know, I might have my bearings off on this, but isn't there a duplex about a block away?
There are some duplexes a couple blocks down that were sold private homes. They are not rentals.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. That's what
Yeah.
public shares.
Yeah.
Okay.
Does anyone have anything else for me?
They get an opportunity to cross.
Mary Beth?
What year did you buy your home, or did your daughter buy it?
It's about 12 years ago, roughly.
I
Ish.
thought you said in 2021.
You've not been sworn in. You're more welcome to.
2011.
But you gotta get sworn in.
2011.
And technically, since we're at this hearing, and it's supposed to be for property owners, I know we've let them speak, but is that
Well,
accepted?
hold on a minute. If you're going to
Oh,
testify,
okay.
you're going to have to get sworn in. So we went into, that goes to his standing, all right? If somebody has standings, if they can demonstrate that they would suffer a particular, economic or some other kind of hardship, special damages from the outcome tonight, then they have standing. There's not a specific hard and fast rule about whether or not you live within this distance of the property or something like that. So, he's got an interest, and we went into standing, and he's a party with standing as far as we're gonna go forward with tonight. So, I understand your point, but
I just, on record, he's not listed as property owner, so.
But didn't we
if
all-
you want to, now, we're getting into an awkward sort of situation here, gang, because you've not been sworn in, and now's not really the time to put on new evidence. If you want to testify, we can ask the board if they want you to come up, and you'll have to be sworn in. You've definitely got to be sworn in before you give them any information or testify to them at all.
I will be happy to do that, if that's the board's desire.
This is the point where the board's calling witnesses to come up that are going to be sworn or have been sworn, and ask them questions, and then the parties have an opportunity to cross-examine them, which is to say to ask them questions based on the information they've just provided. So,
Can I say something? When this process started, I was giving standing. Is that correct?
yeah, they didn't object.
They did not object at the time.
They approved it.
So I have standing. Is that correct?
Yeah, I know, so you
Okay,
don't.
so I would like to ask you something.
Now's not time to you go
Okay.
back and ask her stuff.
Okay.
There's a process, a procedure here.
Okay.
so,
Anything else that I
they-
can
they-
answer?
You're there to answer their questions right now. and
What
this
else,
is-
Mary Beth?
Unless there's anybody else over here on this side of an opposition, there's only one other party that has standing. Ms. Cruz, do you have any questions for him?
For him, no, I just wanted to.
Well, if you don't have questions, then that's all. If the board wants to ask you more questions or call anybody else up to go into any further detail. then
Is there a
that's-
problem with
that's
the
up to
daughter
you.
getting standing?
If the board wants to call her up here and either get into the issue of her standing or just ask her questions as a witness, then now's the time to do it, but she must be sworn first.
I think we should give her a chance.
If you'd like to call her up here as a witness, then we
Yeah,
need to
I'd
call her
like
and
to
get
come here
her
as a
sworn.
witness.
Do you swear to tell the whole truth, Good afternoon, Board. My name is Erica Parker, and I am the property owner of 206 North Augusta Avenue. I am here with my dad. My dad lives in the home that I own, and he has a lifetime right to that home. I actually live in Dunn, but my dad is the one who stays in that residence, and so he is here speaking on behalf of my home since he is the tenant in that property. But I fully support his comments tonight and the feedback that has been provided to you. Is there any questions for me?
Any question, Ms. Parker? Any cross-examine, or anybody want to ask her anything on the applicant's side, or?
Okay.
If you have no further questions, it's, the board will call anyone else they want to hear from as a witness, or conclude the evidentiary portion of the hearing and go into a deliberation phase.
We're going into the deliberation, calling the commissioners into deliberation, so everything else is finished. So the commissioners can talk to each other now, deciding what you're gonna present.
So can you put up again our things that we have to use to decide?
Anything else from the commissioners? I'll entertain a motion of your wishes.
You know, generally, Aaron and I would both suggest that you take each finding of fact individually, and you can even debate each one, or take them in succession and make a motion to make a determination as to that particular finding of fact.
The finding of facts is up on the board. So I'll entertain a motion.
Just remind the board while you're considering, competent, relevant, substantial evidence provided to you tonight by the parties, right? So that doesn't necessarily mean just opinions, unless those opinions are rooted in facts or expert, not expert necessarily, because I don't think anybody really qualified as an expert witness, but there was a foundation for that opinion. So there's questions about that, and now's the time to deliberate on it.
And I think it's probably a good idea to go through each point and see how the feeling is of the board. It's hard to-
Commissioner Rainey, are you still reading us? Are you still reading?
I'll finish reading.
Oh, okay. What do you think?
Well, this is talking out both sides of my mouth. I understand. I'll say that before I say it, but I understand. As I've done in the past, many times I've put a lot of stock in what the neighbors say. But then again, at the same time, I think a person ought to be able to do what they want to do with their property too. So I see kind of a 50-50. One thing, I don't think that the traffic would be a problem because it's just 3 more families in that area. I don't see where that would be. I see, and as I thought about it, I asked the question about how much more development is going to happen. I'm not sure it would make it more likely for more multifamily homes to come, because that would seem to be, if they build a high-rise there, it would be a traffic problem. So that would be more likely to make it not be than less likely to make it not be. So, you know, the other thing too about the rental, if what was stated was that there are 12 other rental properties, 10 or 12 other rental properties in the close area, I don't see how the rental thing makes a big difference in the area, the neighborhood. That's just me, you know. I know that we have, sometimes we think it's gonna be one thing and it's another, but I don't know how we can tell either way. We just have to trust what people say.
We gotta come to a judgment.
You know, William, one time, there was actually a friend of mine that I lost, I don't think they speak to me anymore because of this meeting, this deal where I'm having trouble, and I'm wide open to hearing it, but I'm having trouble finding any reason to deny it based on any of those things up there. And maybe I somehow hadn't thought through, and I'm sure hoping you'll tell me.
Well, my concern is the finding of the facts as far as number 3, is what we've been talking about. Because it's primary, single-family residential over there, and there's not a triplex over there. And there's been no evidence presented to say that it would not be detrimental. So that's where I'm at right now.
Well, it looks nice. It looks nice. My biggest, the building does not bother me. I think it would probably even add to the empty lot. The finding of facts, they sat down and supposedly went through all of them, and to me, they answered all the questions, and I just, we know where we are with the town of Benson on rental property. There's a big difference in $1,800 and $2,000 for a rental property versus a subsidized property of $500 a month, and it does take away from the neighborhood at some point in time. But this right here, and I do. The biggest problem that I have in this whole thing is Carolyn Lambert sitting on the planning board when this joins her property and she didn't withdraw, say, well, look, I've got property adjoining to this, so I need to stand back and.
Well, I wasn't there at that hearing.
I wasn't either.
And there's been nothing presented to you in the evidence tonight as far as the determination of the planning board or what they got into in that hearing, other than the testimony of Mr. Stewart about that particular issue. I would say financial conflicts are narrower than most people think. You've got to have a direct financial
We're not
so-
basing ours on what the planning board decided.
Right.
This
is a whole new
board will
hearing
have
on.
an opportunity to make their own judgment, and that's what we should do.
Yeah,
That's
but
what you have to do.
We're basing it off what they found, their facts.
So you're basing on only what you heard tonight, what Aaron testified and the other witnesses testified to, and the evidence that was presented.
But they made all the requirements that was asked of them, correct? From the planning board.
The planning board's hearing is not really before you tonight.
No.
Just the evidence that's been presented tonight.
You mean requirements from the planning director, right, not planning?
Okay.
Well, the planning director's here and has testified and been cross-examined by anyone who want to ask her questions. Now, her recommendation and the staff report is in evidence.
I'll entertain a motion.
make a motion to deny based on finding the fact number 3.
Any discussion on the motion?
Read fact number 3.
That the application will not substantially injure the value of adjoining or abutting property and will not be detrimental to the use or development or of adjacent properties or other neighborhood uses.
Any other questions, any other comments? All in favor, say aye to the motion.
Aye.
All those opposed, no.
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 The ayes raise the hand.
Wait a minute. Do your motion again. Do your,
Read the motion.
I
Read the
make this
motion.
motion to deny based on finding fact number 3.
All right. All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Hold your hand up.
This is-
All opposed to the motion, say aye.
I'm a little confused now.
Raise it.
So you're voting in favor with Commissioner McClamb's motion to deny the application for
The
a special
special
use
use
permit
permit.
because
Yeah.
it fails on
I
criteria
vote
of
with
finding
him
fact
on that,
3.
yes. Go.
All right. Again, in favor of the motion
Aye.
to deny, raise your hand if you, all right. We got 1,
They got to.
got 2. All right. All opposed to the motion, raise your hand. 3. So it's 3-2 in favor of approval.
No, it was 3-2 to shoot down the motion.
That motion.
To deny.
In favor of the SUP 2023-04.
Mr. Mayor, I would say that the motion failed.
Yeah, the motion
Yeah.
failed.
His motion failed, so the application is not denied. I don't,
Yeah.
no one's
No,
made
I
a
know it's
motion-
not.
No
This
one's
is
made a motion
approved.
to approve it. This is why I would suggest again to the board that you take each criterion of the 4 in succession. You don't have to, it's up to you, but I would suggest you do that. And then you can make a global motion to approve or deny based on going through each finding of fact, and I would suggest you base that on particular evidence that was put into the record tonight.
Right.
I think
All
that's
right.
a better idea to go.
All right,
into-
read number 1.
That the application will not materially endanger the public health or safety if located where proposed and developed according to the plans as submitted and approved.
All right, all in favor of that, raise your hand.
Wait,
You're making a motion? that-
no, I just read it.
Okay,
You
you
just
just
said
read
read
it.
it.
Make a
No
motion.
motion.
Yeah, I didn't make a motion.
Okay, make a motion.
Well, let me. I make well, I don't see how it's gonna do that, so I'll make a motion that requirement is approved, has been met.
All right, all in favor, raise your hand. All opposed? Okay, in favor. All right, number 2.
That the application meets all required specifications and conforms to the standards and practices of sound land use, planning, and the town code of ordinances and other applicable regulations.
All right, make a motion on that one.
We got any thoughts? I don't see where.
Did you make a motion?
Not yet.
I'll make a motion because I don't see how did I make the other motion? What did I say? That requirement of is met by the applicant.
All right, all in favor, say aye. All right, number 3.
That the application will not substantially injure the value of adjoining or abutting property and will not be detrimental to the use or development of adjacent properties or other neighborhood uses.
All right, make a motion. Somebody make a motion.
Then you have a motion.
I made a motion.
Yeah, you made
just
a motion.
died.
Hmm?
I said I made a motion on that, but it died.
I make a motion in favor of 3, that the application will not substantially injure the value of adjoining or abutting property and will not be detrimental to the use or development of adjacent properties or other neighborhood uses.
All in favor of her motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no.
No.
All right, ayes have it. 4,
That the application will not adversely affect the adopted plans and policies of the town or violate the character of existing standards for development of the adjacent properties.
somebody make a motion.
I make a motion, we approve number 4.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no.
No.
All right, 5.
Well, then that was
before, that was
4-1, is that right?
Okay, 4, right.
So now, I would say, having voted on each particular finding of fact in succession, you need to make a motion, consider, and then vote on whether or not the special use permit is approved, based on your vote that it satisfied all 4 findings of fact.
Okay, somebody make a motion. To approve. They all of them are approved, so we need a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve, is it all findings of fact?
Yeah,
Aaron?
yeah.
Approve the request based upon all
findings of fact
that haven't been met.
Haven't been met.
All in favor, say aye. Hold up your hand. Ayes have it. The project is approved. Special use permit SUP 2023-04 is approved. All right. Old business, consider approval of MOU. Kimberly.
All right, the MOU, I'm gonna talk about first briefly. The board recalls at its last meeting, a request came before you for approval of 36,000 or so in an expense for materials for electrical expansion to the new proposed ABJ development off of Mann and Rockland in that area, or south of 27 Highway. The board's concerns were that if that item was approved that night and the applicant did not follow through with their intention to annex or their representation that they would, that the town would be left owing that bill and for expansion of electricity in an area that we didn't have in the town limits. The board directed that we get a memorandum of understanding with the developer ABJ, and that's what's before you first, is that memorandum of understanding. It's simple. It doesn't say much more than that. It just basically says you're going to annex. We're expending certain monies in anticipation of that, and specifically what the board warned, if you fail to annex, then you are required to pay that money, and the town will recoup that from the developer for monies expended for those materials. That's the basis. Of course, these items are taken, and this is a standalone item on the agenda before you, but they're all sort of interrelated. So if you want to get into all of that, I understand. But this is just an understanding with the developer that they will annex, and if they do not, then they owe us that money back that we spent on that invoice.
Just a second ago, you said for materials, for labor materials for all our calls.
For the invoice, right. All what it's for.
So what are you going to do with us just look at it and move on?
I don't know, I want to talk about this.
This is the MOU, not the purchase order.
I'm not talking about that.
This is, the purchase order's next, but this
Right.
is the MOU that y'all requested.
The generic terms of the MOU say if you don't annex, like you said you would, you'll owe us any money back that we've expended on your account for that development. So if you approve this MOU, you're not appropriating any monies or promising anything. You're just going into that understanding with that developer.
Why won't they go ahead and do the work that needs to be done to,
Annex?
yeah?
They have
They
applied.
are, that's in new business.
Like I said, these items on your agenda are all interrelated. You're getting to that later. They have applied, they had submitted their application as of last time. Annexations are not something that we can do a snap vote and get anything approved very quickly on. And I think we discussed that at the last meeting. The board's concern was, well, they could withdraw that application for annexation. And annexations now are only a one-way street. Only applicants can come to you and ask to be annexed. You can't go back the other way and force them to be for quite some years now. So if they withdrew their application and you've already spent the money, then you'd be left on the hook, and that's why we needed the MOU. So they have submitted the application. They've submitted the map now. I don't think they had as of the last meeting, but now they have. But you've got to approve Angie later on in this meeting tonight to proceed with the investigation as to the sufficiency of that application.
All right.
I'll make a motion we approve the memorandum of understanding between ADJ Investments and the town to annex or pay for the cost.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Consider approval of the purchase order over $30,000.
So this is the conversation about the
Okay,
Lee Electric, right? And I have Glenn here again. So we are asking for the board to approve the assistance in getting the electrical in using Lee Electric, as this is not the only project we have going on right now. And this would take up quite a bit of our manpower over the next several months, I would say. And the cost is $137,787. This includes materials in there if needed, correct, Glenn? Not necessarily. So this is the most it could be if we need additional materials.
How many houses?
This would be for 72 houses, correct? 72 houses. So we have started, since it got tabled. We had already started before the last meeting, but our guys have been out there. They've been able to do some trenching out there. However, it is slow going. And like I said, this is the most it could be for the 72 houses. And so since we talked before the meeting, Glenn and I were texting back and forth. So we're estimating spending just on this part of it. He's already spent about $150,000 on materials. And Glenn has, as we discussed after the Electricities Conference, Glenn does a lot of rebuilding of transformers as opposed to buying new transformers. So that has saved us a lot of money in the electric department. But he has already spent $150,000 on materials, POs that have come through the board to get approved.
Help me understand before you go on, so I'll make sure I don't lose it.
Okay.
So the 137, that's not for materials, that's for labor.
This is for labor, but it does have materials in here in the event that we
All
need
materials.
additional materials.
So is that 150,000 that we spent for materials go with these 72 houses?
Yes.
So we're gonna spend 137 plus 150.
We've already spent the 150.
We're gonna have in it
Yeah.
287,000.
Yes.
For 70-something houses.
Yes.
That's $10,000 a house.
Well,
No,
it's,
not.
it's roughly about 4.
The longest portion of this subdivision is our lift station, and it's about 15,000 feet of 3 runs of primary, so that's a long ways out. So the first addition is picking up the lift station,
Yeah.
which is the furthest thing in the subdivision. That's why the first section costs the most.
So what do you, for 200 houses, what do you expect our total bill to be estimated?
So with the 72, with the build out of the pump station, you're looking at roughly $4,000 a house. So if you do it based off of And I estimated it at 198. Is that, I know right now we've got 169 on the plat, but what's the total build out?
They have 176 lots that have been approved, but there's a last phase that McLam, Tart, and West Main Street that has not come before the board for approval. I'm not sure how many lots they're proposing for that, but I've heard maybe 80.
Okay, so we'll say 176 is approved currently. So you're looking at $704,000 total expended on that subdivision.
Roughly.
Not including the amenity space with this one, that's just the lot with the
That's the lot, yeah, because the amenity space is in the next phase, correct? Yeah. That's just on what they've approved, what we've approved so far on spots. So you take it's 176. You base it off of the base fee. So when it's all built out, 176 times 20 is 3520 a year. I mean, is 3520 a month times 12 is 42,000 a year. 42,240.
Tell me what you, go back in, I went blank for a second.
So the base fee is $20 a month per house. Okay. So times that by 12. So per house times 12 for the year is 42,240. 792 divided by 42,240. You're looking at a payout in 18 years. But keep in mind that yes, this is how it's being done on this. This is the biggest subdivision I think that any of your staff currently has had to deal with.
What I'm saying, and I hope everybody agrees with me, realizing we can never do this again.
Well,
we're going to get a payoff in 18 years. Is insane.
And
we can't. We'll prosper ourselves right out of business.
So on the other side of this sheet that we worked on Friday prior to the storm is an ordinance that we're bringing to the board in October to push this cost onto the developer, just like we do water and sewer. So this will be the last subdivision that we, if the board approves, that we will pay for.
And that's you know, we all make snafus and make mistakes and learn from it. We just got to make sure that there's no other thing like, and I don't think there is, but I'm not saying there is. But I'm not saying, I've got friends that are developers, and I've got friends that are builders, but if they're going to take free money, they, you know, these developers, which are I'm sure good people, but you know they're going to make $800,000, $900,000 off of the two people business, and so that's on me. That's on us.
I agree with you 100%, and I just know that other communities are doing bigger projects than this, and they're not paying for it.
Yeah.
I'm sure some of them are in the same situation we are, and it's happened. But you go into Wake County, and when they approve something up there, the contractor knows just exactly what all he's going to have to pay for.
You know, I remember when Walmart came, you know, in retrospect, they took advantage of us. But we didn't know they took advantage of us, or we did maybe know. I was talking to a developer last night, and he said, why is this happening? I said, because back then, if you wanted to put something in Benson, we wanted you, please come, please come, please come. The same with this housing thing. This was the same, my thought was, please come, please come, please come. But we've got to start changing our attitude to be a lot more discerning.
And I think as a board and as a staff, we have moved into that direction. I mean, we started doing, we did last year the study for system development fees. That takes the cost of the burden that people are putting on our water and sewer system, and it's helping us rebuild our infrastructure. This with the electric we've never had an ordinance for electric. So with creating this ordinance for electric at the next board meeting and pushing the cost again to the developer for the work that they're doing is one step closer to where we need to be. So
Speaking of that ordinance, I don't want to get in the weeds on that ordinance, but when would it start? Immediately?
It would start immediately, but if you have something already in permitting, like this particular project, I would say that that would probably be grandfathered
So what
in.
does permitting mean? What does that, like the houses that are coming in?
So we've
the nice
already,
little phase?
we've already approved the subdivision for 179, so I would say that would not fall under that new ordinance because it's already approved by the board. But if you brought the second phase to the board, then he'd have to pay,
Okay,
yeah.
gotcha.
Entertain a motion.
I got a question right quick. What if, something's been approved before, but nothing's happening? And
I don't know that you've approved any other
Honeycutt,
subdivisions. Honeycutt, you've just annexed, you talking about, you've just annexed it in, you haven't approved a plat.
we didn't approve the plat?
Mm-mm. No, right? For Weston Hills? Oh,
That was the planned unit development that was approved in
Yeah.
December, I think it was 2020, or January of 2022.
has the plat been approved? Oh,
So it wouldn't
So-
apply to them, even if they held off 3-4 years and didn't build no houses.
Well, their plat only is good for 2 years.
Oh,
because
okay.
They have a vested right plan that extends that, but, their development approvals in our ordinance sunsets at 2 years.
And the reason why I asked about it, because I noticed the signs out there has been took down and everything.
at Weston Hills?
Yeah, there ain't nothing going on, so that's the reason why I asked about it.
They're sunsets, you can go on forever.
Yeah.
I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve.
All in favor, say aye. Opposed, no.
Thank you.
Consider approval of bulk.
Hold on just a minute. Hey, Glenn, let me ask you one thing about last Friday. All the poles that we've lost, all the transformers and everything, about what does that end up costing us?
I'm still running the numbers on it. It will be expensive.
What was the
Yeah.
question?
Yeah, it'll be all insurance.
Oh, the storm? Oh, yeah, yeah. I'm turning it into insurance. I emailed them Friday night, said, we got a problem, y'all. And I'm meeting with the insurance
turning it
adjuster on
into?
Monday. To our insurance, to Travelers. To Travelers Insurance.
Yeah.
Our insurance. So I'm meeting with the adjuster on Monday. Because our roof is leaking too.
Well, I know when you have that many guys working all night to get everything back on, and we lost so many poles and stuff, I was scared you wasn't even gonna have them.
Well, and that's where we're at. You know, you bank some material and you have it for some places, and then all of a sudden overnight you've used it all. So now I'm behind on my material. So, you know, there's gonna come another PO across your desk.
Yeah, and I was scared this weekend might be another one, but it's turning.
But I can get that number for you.
Well, I would just like to know, because that's what reserves are for, and a lot,
Right.
we don't realize a lot of times that our reserve, well, we've got this amount, let's use it, but we've got to understand what the reserves are for,
Right.
to operate a town when a disaster hits.
I can send, once we have all the costs together, I mean, it's gonna take us probably a few weeks to get everything together, because I gotta get the roof assessed and figure out why the roof is leaking. We gotta get all the invoices from the contractors that we had to bring in, and they're not done yet. They're still doing tree debris removal.
Oh, I know.
So when all that comes in, I can compile it all together for the board, and I can give it to y'all, so you'll know.
Okay, and they'll be back this week, the tree removals?
Yes, sir. They should be back. Did Jeremy? Tomorrow. They'll be back tomorrow. And they should stay through the end of the week to kind of get it all cleaned up.
With a tree removal, you can break it out, not coming out of the electrical fund, right?
Well, yes, correct. Yeah, I mean, that would,
Come out of general fund.
general fund. Yeah, Public Works.
But it took a lot of electrical with it.
It took
Yeah,
lines
yeah.
down.
But the thing, I don't want to deplete the reserves in the electrical.
Yeah. And like I said, I'm turning it into insurance, so.
Where are you gonna get the money those ones talking about?
What do you
Pay for
mean?
the damage.
I'm going to turn it into insurance.
The insurance company's
The
gonna pay for it.
insurance companies should pay for it.
Well, I'd called, Tom and told him that we needed some money if we got blew away, and he's gonna try to get us some.
Well, that'd be great. if he does, I don't have to turn it into insurance. But otherwise, I'm on, that's my,
Don't turn it into
that's what I'm
insurance.
doing.
Much as we pay for
More the
insurance.
merrier. Thank you, and thank you for getting the lights back on,
Yes,
because
ma'am.
they did not stay out all night, and we are grateful for that. So
Thank you
for
very
that.
much for everything y'all do for us as well. Thank you.
Consider approval of bulk waste agreement with Johnson County.
I'm gonna give this to Ike too, because we've discussed this and y'all had some, things you wanted us to change with the attorney. So Ike has really been the one that's been dealing with the Johnston County attorney.
I like to talk a lot, y'all.
Yeah.
So, this became, the brief background, this is a contract with the county to apportion or allocate a certain amount of wastewater treatment capacity at the wastewater treatment plant to the county. Find the numbers here to remind you all of them. 192,160 gallons per day would be allocated under this. This supersedes or sort of replaces several, I don't know, the parcel together is the right word, but prior contracts that we had with the county, and that would be the total amount moving forward. The concerns the board had, which I've agreed with the board, they were concerned that the original proposed contract was for 30 years. And that was a concerning amount of time, and then a concern about what happens if we have to draw back on that allocation, like we did, 2 years ago, and we had so much rain, and the state came down here and we went over that 80-90 rule threshold, and of course that back down once the rain subsided, and the I&I was not as much of an issue, but the board wanted to include provision for not an off-ramp, but an emergency safety valve, I guess, if you want to call it that, and an ability to draw back on that, at least temporarily, in case we have some kind of an unforeseen event. So we went actually to meet Kim, myself, Brian, with the county representatives, Ms. Farmer, and the county attorney, Ms. Schlusser, and the amount of time that they agreed to was, we were seeking, I think, 5 years, and that's what the board suggested or directed us to go ask for. What they're wanting to do now is 20.
And this is, I'm gonna interject while you're looking. This is, we asked them, out of everybody in the county, who are you also having to give your sewer to? And the answer was Clayton. So we said, well, what are you doing for Clayton? So this is essentially the same terms that they have with Clayton.
We did ask for that. It's 2 successive 10-year periods, but you can, so this is, it's not 20, I said 20, it could be a maximum of 20. No, I'm sorry, it is 20 with 2 successive 10-year renewal periods, but you can get out of it at the end of 20 years. That's still a long time, but at least it's equal to what they're doing with Clayton, with the other municipalities.
I tell you what I think we ought to do with this. We ought to let everybody take it home with them and mark it out, because there is no way that I would sign this thing the way it's written. Not at all. Because you get into things like the town shall continue to reserve for the county exclusive use. That is something that we wouldn't want in there at all.
What are the term exclusive use?
Yeah, that means we don't have any control
Well,
over it.
they're gonna want that allocation, that 192,000 acres, or gallons per day. They're gonna want that allocated to them and reserved for them, so they can use it without exception, right? Well, there are exceptions for force majeure and emergency, and I'll get to it in a second, but I think that's gonna be a point of serious sticking contention if you want to change that terminology, because
That's a serious contention I have, is
if you don't
because
allocate it
the
and reserve it.
200,000 is for Four Oaks. That was always true. They're gonna decide who to give it to. Now, Four Oaks has signed a contract with them, but Smithfield and Selma has not. And there's a lot of places in this agreement that, there's no way we want to do.
It's the board's prerogative what they want to do. I will say that they're not going to agree to anything short of an express reservation of the full 192,000 gallons. They're going to want that.
We don't care whether they do it. Now, if they don't do it, it won't change anything that we do.
I'll let Kim speak more to have the ramifications of it and what other
I think we ought to give the board a chance to read this thing
business.
page by page and mark it out, because it's got some things in it that,
Completely fine with me. Let me just draw one attention to the additional safety valve that I mentioned. So there's a force majeure clause. Force majeure, if you, really is akin to like an act of God, right? So something beyond anybody's control. We have two potential abilities or two potential situations where we could draw back on our allocation of capacity. If we really needed to, even if it wasn't an act of God or something, whatever reason, any reason at all, we can go to them and ask and tell them, we need to draw back on your allocation for a certain period of time, a brief period of time, a short period of time, but we need to draw down on it. And if they have the ability to redirect that flow and process it elsewhere, then they'll draw back on it for whatever period we need to. Then also the force majeure, which is defined as pretty much anything unforeseen. If you read in here, it says, including but not limited to fire, flood, acts of God, terrorism, war, natural disaster, tornado, hurricane, civil strikes, labor disputes, riots, system failure, broken pipes, or other actions causing an inability to perform beyond a reasonable control of the town or the county. So that pretty much could include anything conceivable that was unforeseeable by us. I mean, the only other reason why you're going to have concerns about this allocation, in my opinion, and I don't know if Brian's here.
I tell you what, I really think we ought to set this aside. There's a lawsuit that Smithfield has filed against the county. And what it's about is that they wanted sewer for a hotel that's being built. The county wouldn't give them the sewer because they hadn't signed the contract. And so Smithfield sued them. And I'd like to see what the judge says about that.
It is true that I've read about that case myself. That's what the town of Smithfield is alleging, that the county's trying to kind of strong arm and assign a new contract. Anyway, to finish, that's what that clause says, that if you have an emergency, anything outside of your control, you can draw back on that allocation. So to just sum up, 20 years, and you have the ability to draw back if you really need to for an emergency. That's what the negotiations yield with them. We did try to get it down to 5 or maybe even 10, but it wouldn't budge lower than 20. I'm happy to.
They're needing it, right? I think
They've been asking for it, they weren't. but-
They'll go below 20.
Kim, did they ever give us our money back?
They might give you the impression or not, but they will.
They are paying for the study of Hannah Creek.
Huh?
They're paying for the study of Hannah Creek.
So tell me, I'm reading here, but they're paying $1.11 for transmission per 1,000 and $3.15 for treatment.
Mm-hmm.
So what's our cost in that? What do we make? What does it cost us to provide that service?
Add those together, that's our cost.
No, that's what we're charging.
We're not
We're
breaking.
not making any money.
We're not making any
Why
money.
would we do it if we're breaking even?
Hmm?
Why would we do it if we're breaking even? Why
Well,
would
you're
we
not
put
looking
ourselves
at
You're
it
going
right
to
now.
charge them whatever your current bulk commodity rate is.
And we're
That's just
also
what it is.
taking we are making them pay for the additional capacity. They're paying our system development fee of $88,000.
So, is that proper?
Hmm?
Would we have to pay that if they did?
Would we have to pay the $88,000?
Yeah.
No, that's part of the system development
That's
fee.
the compensation for entering into this.
That's what we get because
So
we're
getting
giving
$88,000
them
for 20
capacity.
years, and we're providing them at cost for 20 years,
Mhm.
and then we get $88,000
And
for
how much they jack up the water on this?
It was done that was the highest.
Well,
They jacked it up
they
too,
keep
but
with a break even like we're doing? Just asking.
I mean we can go
I
up.
mean, whatever y'all want. I had some
It's
reservations
more than
about-
what they were paying before.
We
I
had
mean-
some reservations about it.
We were
This
losing
is
money
what-
before.
This is what we want to do, and I said, Kevin and I said, we'll take it back to our board, but Kim can tell you, she's seen a lot of the emails that go back and forth between myself and the county attorney and their representatives, and I've said, I will take it back to them, but, I feel a lot better if we could get closer to, this language or these numbers or this term, and that's what they wanted to present, so.
Jerry,
And-
we were losing money before, but are we even breaking even now?
We make just a tad on the new, but it's not even, but see, what they do is they have a pipe that they send the stuff down. And they take a little over a penny just for using their pipes. And we get about 2 pennies to process the sewer. So it's really not a money-making proposition.
So,
It's like you're doing it for free.
so why is it that they are hard about this? I know there's bound to be a logical reason that they are saying, no, we won't do 19, we'll only do 20, and we'll only do this and this and
The
this.
reason
Because
they give is because
They don't have the infrastructure. I mean, if we were to say today, no, we're not taking your 200,000 gallons per day, that has to go back towards Smithfield, and I don't know that right now they have the infrastructure to take it. They can take it for a short term, but they can't take it permanently right now.
Are you saying we've got them over a barrel?
If they ain't got the infrastructure, then the growth stops in Clayton, because Clayton's over capacity, because the county's in with that, correct?
I mean, would it stop?
Man.
I mean, right now,
Yeah.
Clayton's building another wastewater treatment plant.
They're
So, I mean,
building-
Clayton's taking care of themselves right now,
That's the reason
but
why
yeah.
Johnston County wanted to send us more because of Clayton's growth.
So let me just say this. Just think about this. 3 out of the last 4 years, we've lost money on water and sewer.
I tell y'all what, I know government and eye doctors are different animals, but I don't do stuff where I lose money on it. If I'm gonna break even or lose money, I don't do it.
So then let me ask something. Why don't we just do and table this?
And y'all read
go
it.
through it.
Can y'all please send us comments prior to the October 12th meeting? Because Jennifer's taking this, we'll have to ask her to probably hold it, but she was going to take it to her board on October the 4th.
5 years.
So if you, okay.
So send
So
it
if you
to
will send, me, and I'll forward them to Ike, or I can compile them all together and get them to Ike, that'd be perfect. If y'all could send me your comments, or call me, I'll write it down, whatever's easiest.
Bye.
Call if there's any questions.
Yeah.
Here, send
By,
that.
I would say by next Friday.
It's marked up.
The Friday of Mule Days. If that's not all possible. That, he just did that, didn't he? He's smart now.
This is for me?
That's me.
That's his comments. All right, perfect.
So she had made a motion to table it, so all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. All right, let's go. Consider voluntary annexation petition for ABJ 99. Angie.
All right, so tonight we have 2 voluntary annexation petitions. The first one, the petitioner is Brian Johnson. This is the MOU that you just approved for the, what now? Oh, I don't know why I put Brian Johnson. Brian Rayner, sorry. It's approximately 102 acres. It's the subdivision. We have got his application, so I just need to get a motion for you guys to direct me to investigate, and then at the next board meeting, I'll bring back the certificate of sufficiency if all the criteria has been met, and then we can set a public hearing for November.
I'll entertain a
No.
motion.
I make a
For-
motion that
No, it's November. Next month I will come back in October. I will have the certificate of sufficiency, and it will say if they have met all their criteria. If they have, then we will set the public hearing for November.
Do
And
we need to
then,
vote on this, what's here
right, and,
now?
yeah, you need a vote for me to direct me to investigate this
I make a
annexation.
motion that we direct you to do that.
Okay.
All in favor say aye. Opposed, no.
Okay, the next one, we have another is for, the petitioner is Andrew Rodman. It's for Camco. The address is 191 McClamtart Road. This is for a contractor's office. So I just need to get a motion for me to, start the process of doing the certificate of sufficiency.
I make a motion that Angie start the process.
All in favor say aye. Opposed, no.
All right, thank y'all.
Mitigation fee ordinance, Alan Johnson. You want to sit down and talk?
No, sir, I'm good. Mayor and board come to y'all tonight, with an ordinance update for mitigation on some charges for our, what we do for, what we call MVA billing. It's been 7 years since we put this ordinance in the, or 8 years since we put it in place. It's 7 years since we started collecting. I added in there were the monies that we have collected over the last 7 years. Just a spreadsheet of that, so you can see it's been roughly about $83,000. Divided into 7 years, that gets us about almost 12,000 a year, not quite. Extra in the MVA billings, we have a company, USA Fire Recovery, that does all the billing for us. We provide them with information. They handle the billing. They get 20% of what they collect. If they don't get anything, they don't charge us anything. So they get 20% of what they collect. Again, this is just updating what they bill for. I think I figured up it adds. I think it said in there 7 or 8%, but it'll give us a few more dollars per call. That's kind of where we're at, just with the increase in fuel and labor and everything nowadays, as everybody knows well. We're just trying to recruit some more money when we can, where we can. I'd be glad to answer any questions that you may have. Like I said, we already have this ordinance in place. Ike looked over it, and we did change a little bit. He did update some name titles and about all you done tonight, from like city to town and
More form over substance. Basically the same ordinance, and if you look there, I think it's the last section before the mayor's signature, section 7. This supersedes a like ordinance passed by the board on or about 13th October 2015. So this is really just keeping it in place. Although the substantive change that I didn't add in is on the exhibit, and it's the increase in fees. So what you're substantively doing is reinstituting this ordinance, which is going up on the amounts.
I make a motion that we do that. Mayor.
Any other questions?
I got a question. Underneath your fires, is that a structure fire also?
so, and I was thinking to say that when Ms. Maxine made the motion, but, so all we bill for is this is the standard rate. But all we turn in, if we don't turn it in, they don't bill anybody.
Right.
So it's for motor vehicle accidents, and then hazmat. So we feel if we have a fire, a structure fire, you're already paying fire tax.
Right, that's right, that's what I'm getting at.
That covers that. We don't bill anybody for that. And I'm not gonna say, yeah, it's not happened, but by this, you see what did you name it?
Any other questions?
We don't do no water incidents, but if you do something crazy and you burn something, I mean, we could charge for something, but as far as house fires, they're already paying fire tax. We don't.
That got discussed pretty lengthy discussion in 2015 too, about
And
not
we-
taxing people twice.
Yeah, and so if you live in town, we don't, in short, we don't bill for that either.
All right,
They
my
do
motion's
just do
on
the
the floor.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no.
Thank you.
Alan Johnson. Matt Smith. Don't look alike.
I gotta apologize. If I knew you guys were gonna be here this long, I wouldn't have come in tonight. I don't wanna make your night any longer than it already is. But, I'm not here to ask for any votes or anything like that. I just wanna kind of clear the air on some stuff and kind of give you some information and kind of maybe get your opinion on a few things. So I've been getting a lot, which was, push down?
There you go. Keep going. Keep going.
Okay. I've been getting, as you all know, we've got the playground in. It's fantastic. It's getting used day in and day out. I've been approached and have some people coming to me about what we could put on the opposite side of the swings from the playground, because it is kind of a blank space. And I know that you've heard the word splash pad 1,000 times. I've heard the word splash pad 1,000 times. You've heard the word tot lot. I've heard it tot lot. I've heard of all kinds of things. So I just kind of want to go through and quickly kind of give you a heads up on what all these things cost and what they are. So the splash pad, I've been doing some digging. This is a 961-foot splash pad, square foot splash pad. It's got 24 in-ground features. The purchase cost of that would be $53,364. Installation would be $90,000. $143,364 for that total package. You'd also have to decide whether you wanted to have reclamated water or have groundwater or storm water. I'm sorry, not groundwater, storm water. So that would also work into the effect, or into the cost. The second one is above and in-ground features. There is 16 in-ground and above-ground features. It's 961 square feet. Purchase of it would be 72, and the installation would be 80. So you're looking at $150,000 for that one. These are roughly the same size as what Dunn has. The one in Dunn is 30 by 30. This would be 31 by 31. So it's 961 square feet. If you want to increase that to 1,200 or 1,400 square feet, you'd have to bump up the price 20 to 30%. I'm not sure a splash pad at the Grove is the way to go, but I'm throwing all these options out to see what you guys think. If we talk about a tot lot playground, a tot lot is specifically aged for 2 to 5-year-olds. This is the design. This is just an example of a design that I got from Bars. This would be $67,500 if we put this in. Now, that number, I'm confident I could get lower than that with a little finagling from Bars. So that is something that I know I could work with, but I wanted to give you the high number first. But I think that we could bring that down some. This is the same playground with a kind of a closer look at it, and it's designed specifically for 2 to 5-year-olds.
But now, the 67,000, they wanted to add the rocking horses.
Right.
Are the rocking horses in that, or?
Yes, but I'm going to get on. I'm going to get onto that in a second.
Okay.
Yeah. So when when we talked about the donation, we talked about. I'm sorry, that's so small. We talked about a possible donation. The board decided when I came up here in, I think, February, and we talked about naming rights. We decided that $50,000 would go towards the naming of the playground that's currently there. When I had a couple of discussions with the possible donor. He was very into the rocker items that were in that one, and I'm going to show you a few more in a second. Didn't seem to be as interested in the playground nor the splash pad, but seemed to be interested in those rockers. And my thought is that he would be interested in putting his name on the playground, and if we added some of the small rockers to that one side and kind of tied it in with the current playground. And I agree there needs to be something on the other side. It's awful blank, but that kind of giving you the ideas of what we're looking at. But this is kind of the rockers that we were talking about. I asked about more three-dimensional, like it would be a three-dimensional horse they were sitting on. The guy, my contact at Bar said a lot of playground areas are getting away from those and they're going to these. But I'm sure that I can look around and find. But each one of these, just the cost, this doesn't include installation, it doesn't cost servicing. The cost of these rockers would be about $1,300 each. These are considered riders. They're roughly $1,400 each, and a child actually gets into the rider. So they're a little bit more expensive. And this is what a tri-rider, which that price includes any three of the rockers that you want, plus they're together and acts as almost like a seesaw. The kids are kind of going, kind of bouncing against each other. Suggestion, from what I've heard from the donor and from other folks that know the donor, that he would be very interested in adding rockers or riders like these, not necessarily these, because he wants to see them more three-dimensional, but I'm not sure they even make them anymore. And I believe that he would I believe that he would donate the money for the naming of the playground plus put these in, but I haven't confirmed that. I wanted to come to you guys first and say, this is what I think. So I guess I'm asking you what you think. But I'm not, you know, so I'm just, that's where I'm at. I wanted to clear the air on a lot of stuff. I wanted to give you some prices on splash pads and see what you think.
As far as splash pads go, I like the second option better.
Okay. Now, again, a splash pad, you know, I think, you know, this splash pad is again, $961. You also kind of have to decide if that's something that you want in the Grove.
Right, yeah. But I'm
Is
saying
it-
as far as splash
Okay.
pads, I like option two myself.
Okay.
I like the idea of PS Park being a splash pad.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking.
Well, that is another possibility, and you know,
But as far as a playground, I know the donor, whoever, but I do agree that there needs to be a playground there for 2 to 5 year olds. We just had my wife's niece out there, and she's 3 years old, and that thing.
It was too high.
It's too high.
right. Well, it's high. Yeah, it's
high.
it's up there. My granddaughters were on it not long ago, and one of them was a little scared to go up it.
Yeah.
That's the only thing in the Grove, though, that stood the winds, and right after it was over, while they were cutting up trees, there was 10 people that ended up getting back on the stuff like nothing had happened.
Now,
The wind didn't touch that, I could tell you.
at what point do we need to put a fence?
That is my next
Okay.
object on here.
And I got another thing.
Yep.
As far as grading
Mhm.
around where are we
Backfill.
gonna do something about, yeah,
Yes.
because there's like a drop off.
Yeah, well, Jamie and I have already discussed that. We're going to try to get that backfilled so it comes even with the top of the border. Where you have the ramp and it's the backfill's going to come in on top of that.
But I agree with Max. The splash pad needs to be out there. It is.
Okay, well, I'm just telling you the information I've gotten. And that's fine. Now, Commissioner McLam already brought something up about the fences. Okay, I have got a price on, you know, we've talked about, and I know the advisory board has talked about fencing, and fencing the 2 sides of the playground and the entire parish side. What I've got is a number for a coated black fence, 4 foot high, that is very similar to the fence that's at the dog park. Those 3 sides would be just under $6,000. And if you just wanted to do the parish, just along parish, it would be 45, I believe is what I have. Hang on, let me get my cool glasses.
Dean, we had talked about that from day one when we
45.
were getting it, but there was so much space next to it. We didn't want to move a fence after we put it up.
Right.
Without knowing what we were going to put on the space to the left side that's wide open. He's got prices on big trees to replant the trees there, some maples and stuff that would come in 15 foot.
Yeah, but I'm sorry.
But we don't want to put anything out there until we get through with it.
Yeah, I wouldn't put a fence. If I was gonna put a fence, it would be at the back. I mean, I wouldn't dare.
Well, you also have to
cut
decide,
from
that's-
beside the playground. It'd be to the road.
Yep, you have to decide what kind of fence you want. What I have is the chain link, coated chain link that is just like the dog park.
Yes.
I mean, to me, what would look perfect is if that brick wall continued all the way around the Grove, you know, but that's going to be even more costly. But you also, you've got other options. So if you kind of have to decide what kind of fence we want to have out there. That's kind of, the Grove is like the sacred place in town. So do we want to go with that kind of coated chain link, or is there a different kind of fence that you want to try to see out there?
And we've never talked about closing the whole thing in. It's going to be open. It's going to be open on the park side, the picnic tables where they go in. We're just trying to keep them off. I mean, if you'll go right now, you've got 6 cars and kids playing on it, and they'll run through on Parish Drive.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, we just tried to
Trying to
keep them
kids.
Well,
in
it's,
the park.
you're not keeping anybody out of the playground. You're keeping kids from running the parish.
Yeah, that's what I was
That's it.
asking about the fence.
Yeah. But you're right. But we kind of have to figure out what kind of fence we want. You know, I can, I've got this quote on this one, but if you're like, well, we don't want chain link in the Grove, we want to have a decorative fence. We want to have this, because we kind of got to figure out what we want. So So whatever you know, I'm kind of at your beck and call, like what
Okay,
you'd like
well,
to say.
my beck and call right now is give us a chance to discuss this.
Okay.
And decide what we want to do.
Okay,
So can we
that's fine with me.
proceed?
Is that y'all good with, yep?
Yeah.
I just wanted to give you a heads up on what's going on.
Yeah, and I understand what you're doing.
Do you have prices on all that now? He's gonna be here this week.
Yeah, yep. I mean, everything that I just showed you is the prices we've got. Now, what I've got to try to find is more three-dimensional, which I don't even know if they make those anymore.
Well, I kinda like what you got.
Okay, well, I mean, that's great. I think they're cool too. So I think if we have several of these tied into the playground that we have, with the swing set side, and give it a couple of these, a couple of riders, and, you know, something like that, I think that'd be a nice addition.
Talking about getting a playground for a 2 to 5-year-old, right?
Yes, that's what, well, that is what these would be kind of.
So it's not gonna be the climb.
No, you know, when
Miniature one of those out there.
when we spoke about it, he wasn't real keen on that. It wasn't real like this whole playground area. It was just kind of like the riders and that was kind of.
riders out there, that's it?
Yeah, that's the impression I got. Now, we can go, I mean, that's the other playground that we talked about, and that would include those riders. Now, but that's gonna be more costly.
What kind of price do you think it would take to put the fence like some of the other sides of the grove or the back?
The brick, I can call my guy.
Yeah, see, just.
And ask. Yep.
Because we want to,
I know a brick guy, I know a couple brick guys.
we want to make sure we make it look nice.
Yeah, and that's kind of why I was sitting there asking about it. What kind of, you know, to me, that would be like more, it would look like uniform, like you have the entire thing brick. Even if it's just down that parish side.
Man, just as a comment, I think it would be a good idea let's take that to him and see if this is what he wants, and then bring the package back that he's proposed to the board and let them.
That's fine.
Look at it.
That sounds good to me. But I've heard a lot of talk about splash pads and playgrounds and this and that. I just want to kind of make sure everybody kind of knew what was going on, what I'm looking at.
And sitting on this board, you gotta realize that the town has spent the money on it. Okay, we have talked about people giving money toward this. How much have you received?
From donation, from like naming rights or anything? No, not for this,
Naming
nothing.
rights, and he came up with this, that he may increase his amount. He wasn't interested in Viz Park. He's interested in right there and the kids. So
That's why I say
think we
let
ought to
him look
present
at
it
it.
to him and say, here's what you're gonna get for your bucks.
And that's 100% fine. That's kind of what I was looking for,
And we
direction,
may
which
be
direction
able to
you
get a
wanted me to
little
go.
more if it
Well,
fills out something.
we may, and maybe he can write the check for the amount instead of putting it in over the next 10 years, given.
No.
I know, but that's what.
It won't be the next
We've got
10.
that at Viz Park.
No, we've
We've got,
It's
we've,
five.
we've
Five
got
years.
that, 5 years.
5 years.
Yeah.
All right, so my motion is that we have a little time to think
Yes,
about
ma'am.
this.
Yeah,
Thank
this
you.
was just
Good.
discussion
Yeah.
anyway.
Can I have the-
what's the last thing? Kimberly and Tyler Douglas.
I don't know where Tyler went. Oh, there he is. He's hiding again from me. So this is not, but at any means, probably the final. We've gone back and forth with the graphics, and we had our symbol on there, but there's some internal discussion about maybe changing our Benson logo because it was similar to the chamber at one point. And then we talked about the sports theme on the elevated storage tank because it's at Viz Park. So this is fresh from today. Tyler's been going back and forth with the graphics. And really what we want is, if y'all like the direction we're going in, can y'all give us free reign to get this graphic done? I'll send it to y'all as a board so you'll see it. But although they say it's not a rush to get it, they kind of want it. But we're still not completely happy with what they've done. So Tyler's going to do some work on it, but you can kind of see Well, we took the football out because it looked weird. But if y'all have some ideas, I mean, we had asked them to kind of change some, like the Benson was very plain. We asked them to take the football off. It just kind of looked out of place. I don't know. What do y'all think?
You know, I'm not an art critic, but I think it needs to be all, they need to be bunched up. They don't need to be spread out like that, like they're just randomly thrown around.
Okay. You taking notes, Tyler? Okay.
And then I think, you know, the Benson NC part needs to be big, and the balls need to be more like a logo on top of the Benson NC. If you do that, I'm not really crazy about the ball.
Do you want to nix the balls?
I would love that. I think we just need to make it look like a cool Benson NC thing. It just needs to look.
After she said something about this, I started looking at every water tank I go by.
I do too. Every time oh my God.
Just about everybody has their town logo on.
So we had talked about maybe a rebranding of our logo, but then we talked about if we know we're going to have to do a second tank, and maybe the second tank would have our rebrand on it.
What about town seal?
Yeah.
Because it's also a circle, so we could combine. You think something like that? We could put that in there, you know.
So take.
Well, just take Benson NC out, put the seal in amongst all that, you know.
I like that idea.
What about that?
I like that. Does everybody kind of agree with that?
You like that?
Do you want us to bring it? But we don't meet again until October. So do you want us to bring it back in October, or do you want us to get graphics and email it to y'all?
Get graphics and email.
Perfect.
Yeah, we can do that.
Y'all are the best. Thank you.
Sweet.
All right. Got it? Yep. All right. All right.
Okay, Kim.
So, first off, I want to say Ms. Holly's already touched on this, but I just want to thank our staff from Friday. So, if you were in town, it very quickly came in, held, and left. And electric, public works, fire, police, customer service, they all just, it was like riding a bicycle. They knew exactly what they needed to do. They were all communicating with one another. And they got out there and they got it done. Public Works was able to leave a little after 5. They had cleared all the streets of the trees of what they could clear, minus Hill and Main. Our electric department, along with the contractors, they were here until 4 in the morning on Saturday. They essentially came in at 8 and did not leave till the next day at 4 in the morning. So they had a very long day. And I just want to say thank them so much, because they really did work above and beyond that day and did a great job and worked together. Additionally, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday of next week, Waste Industries will be doing their fall pickup. So if anybody cleans their yards over the weekend in preparation of Mule Days, which I can't believe is next week, put it out by the road. Waste Industries will come by and pick it up those 3 days. The golf tournament for Mule Days is on Friday. We have our prayer breakfast. There is a prayer breakfast tomorrow at 5:30 at Benson Baptist Church. You're all invited. Not a prayer breakfast, a prayer ceremony. So sorry. A prayer ceremony tomorrow at 5:30 at Benson Baptist Church. The prayer breakfast is in here Saturday on the 23rd, starting at 8 o'clock. And we will leave there and get on our horse and buggy and ride through the parade. So we hope all of y'all are there for that. And then in October, we have 2 weeks in October where we get to appreciate and show our love to 2 departments that we mentioned on Friday, the electric department and the fire prevention week. So we have Public Power Week and Fire Prevention Week, so that's for electric and fire coming up in October. So we'll be doing proclamations for them at the next meeting. And I think that's all my notes. That's all I have.
Okay,
Little Birdie told me that the town manager's contract requires you to do her evaluation next month. So I'm putting that in the back of your mind, that we need to maybe get a process for that. I think in the past, that's something I've sort of been, I don't say I've handled it, it's the board's evaluation, but I've compiled the forms and you know, just sort of facilitate it, I guess, so.
Are you gonna use the ones that they've used before?
I'll do whatever the board wants on that.
I never liked those things, but I don't have anything better.
We-
Like I said, Kim just reminded me of that. I pulled up her contract. She's right. It is next month, so you know, that's what the contract calls for. We need to at least be looking at how we're gonna conduct that and then directing me on, you know, the contract doesn't require anything specific or to use what you've done in the past. You know, it requires that you have do an evaluation, eventually you prepare a written evaluation, that she has an opportunity to respond to that, and that there'd be an evaluation meeting, so.
An evaluation meeting of who?
I think we usually have a closed session and we go over it. I think that's what y'all have done in the past.
Well, if we use that same, I'll say performance review, maybe next year, because it looks like we may not have time to get a new one. Maybe we can look at doing another one for next year.
We've changed the staff one, if you want me to send it to Ike. There's still a self-evaluation, and then there's evaluation done by the supervisor, y'all. And then there's a part where you come in together and you discuss. I mean, we have, and I'm not sure what y'all have used in the past. I'm assuming it's what we've always used as a staff, and we changed it a couple of years ago.
I think it was similar, but I think in years past, there might have been too much in it.
It was.
Let me just say it that way. Just too many open-ended questions too, like, just, you know, that don't really bring a lot to the table in terms of discussion. So.
That is exactly
Agree
right.
with that.
But I'm happy to do whatever y'all want, and you can email me directly. Everybody, I know should be able to if you want to let me know how to do that, or if you'd like, I can give you some time to think about it and reach out to the board directly. And you send me the form you have, and I can send that out and see if maybe that would suffice, or I can get out there and look for different resources for manager review templates.
That might be something we need to do, because I don't like that.
I mean, we don't want to use the old one, sounds like, so I'm gonna send her the one they're using now for staff, and maybe we can base something off of that. I'll send that out to the board.
Okay. Next.
The only thing I have is my brother Eric's daughter Emily, my niece Emily's getting married week after next. I'll be in Missouri. I won't be here if we have the Thursday meeting.
We don't have a meeting, and it's not scheduled because of Mule Days.
I figured that, but I wanna make sure.
You're good.
I appreciate all town employees for their quick response to the storm. Police, fire, electric, on down to the people that just answered the phone. Appreciate everything y'all do. Thank you. I think I seen Will on Main Street. Was that you I seen?
He was.
Who were you yelling at?
Everybody.
It's probably somebody local that didn't know how to
I could
detour.
hear him all the way from Dennis's.
No, well, I was back out at your house the other day. I thought that's what you were talking about.
Oh, were you?
Yeah, Monday night, I think.
Cassandra?
I appreciate everything.
I do not have any reports, but I do want to let all of the staff, I call them the frontline employees, know that I certainly appreciate everything they did. It happens, as a matter of fact, when the storm started, I was in Food Line, so I was there for a while. And then when I left, I was amazed at everything that happened. Then I ran into a school bus that was stopped and wired lines had fallen down. I called Kim. But yeah, I think everyone did wonderful. I mean, it was definitely a quick response. So I do appreciate everything that everyone did.
Ms. Holly?
Well, I already said what I wanted to say. I appreciate everything everybody has done. I appreciate your leadership. And girl, that's a lot for me.
Well, thank you.
I do appreciate it because I know it takes good leadership to keep the ball rolling. I think it rolled well Friday. I wasn't here. I was shocked when I got into Benson. So I appreciate that.
Will?
I'm good.
I got one more thing that Could you talk to that donor and see if instead of those riding things, he could get some big hands that they can rock in big hands?
No, I had is, one of the things I thought we ought to do is, I think we ought to put together a resolution for all the people that did work. I did what Kim told me to, is to stay out of the way and stay at home.
You done the right thing.
And so we really do appreciate all that was done, and there's still a lot to do, but I think they've really shown well. There's two things that I really would like to see, and I don't know whether we can ever get this done or not, but on Mule Day is the big event in Benson, and there's a lot of people come here because they like to come here. And going to that breakfast on Saturday morning, it would be great if we could have all the commissioners there. I'm going to introduce everybody whether you're there or not. And the other thing is, riding on that wagon, we got a new mule this year. She's prettier than the other one, but the wagon is going to be the one that we usually have. So if everybody could ride on that, it won't, the whole thing would take us about 4 hours, and we could all be together at one time. So that's all I have. Anything else to come before the board? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I made that motion.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Thanks.
What are we gonna wear?
I guess your jeans and your middle and your,
I sold everybody a few cowboy hats and boots.
Yeah.
well, this,